Welcome to Clientology, the art and science of client getting. In this podcast, we're going to discuss how you can attract, convert, and deliver. So attract is how do you attract your dream clients while simultaneously repelling nightmare clients? And convert, we're converting those perfect prospects into dream clients. And lastly, under deliver, we're going to focus on topics around how do we deliver wow experiences. The theme throughout is how do we become more referable? How do we build referral programs and deliberately have systems that work to bring us a steady stream of perfect prospects and dream clients? Welcome to the show. Our guests are all experts in their field and they've agreed to share their insights with my audience. I hope you enjoy and I look forward to your comments and feedback. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. In today's episode, I'm really excited. I am having a conversation with Matt Deutschman. Matt, why don't you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jeff. My name is Matt Deutschman. I own a company called Double Take Promotional Marketing, and we specialize in promotional products and branded merchandise. So all kinds of custom imprinted swag. And we mainly work with clients in the higher education industry or in professional services and financial services businesses. And we also work with a lot of advertising and marketing agencies and some construction firms.
I love it. And by the way, you didn't know this coming in, but swag is one of my favorite topics because a lot of what I talk about is building relationships. And what better testament to your relationship building skills than your clients want to wear your name on their, their hat, their chest, their mug, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to guess that, you haven't personally branded, Harley Davidson or Apple. But those are two of the companies I think, people literally get branded with the Harley Davidson tattoo.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I actually host a podcast called the Irresistible Brand Podcast. And one of the questions that I ask people that are guests of mine is, what does the concept of an irresistible brand mean to you? And both of those companies are brands that guests have referenced in answering that question. So yeah, I mean, people definitely identify the Harley Davidson brand, the Apple brand as something that, is just something that you find irresistible, that for whatever reason you're, and we unpack what those reasons are,
Yeah.
but that for whatever reason you're just drawn to it. It's something that is kind of in some ways indescribable, but unmistakable. But you're drawn to it, and even if it's not your own company, you're happy to represent that brand and promote it far and wide.
And for people to actually go get tattoos, that is loyalty. That's
pretty amazing. Yeah, it's a pretty, if you step back and think about what that means, that you're taking someone else's brand and business and you're branding it onto your own body. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And so the step down from that is to wear something that's removable but still has someone else's brand, and that's still a major testament to the loyalty and the irresistible nature of that brand that you're representing when you're wearing that garment.
Yeah, and I think that's yes, we are a step down. We're not encouraging anybody to go and get their brand tattooed on their clients, but I do love
listen,
the
by all
idea.
means, if you can make it work, then if people are willing to put it on their bodies, go for it.
Exactly. Now total tangent, but if you can think of other brands that are that iconic that people will get tattoos, Harley is the one that jumps out at me just because people, it's the lifestyle. But I think I love talking about branded merchandise, and honestly, one of the things I see a lot of people missing the point of is if you have branded merchandise, and the branded pen is probably, my 2 cents, the easiest one to start with. But what's the value beyond the obvious, but in terms of building relationships and marketing, what's the value of having this branded swag that most people tend to not recognize?
Well, I think the key the key point of my answer to your question would be the word you just used, relationships, right? Building relationships, and it's not always quantifiable, but building an effective brand is all about, I mean, what is a brand at the end of the day? And what is a culture of an organization? It's an aggregate of relationships, right? So the essence of branding is how you relate to your audience and how you make people feel with everything, all five senses, every way in which you come across to your audience. And something that we're involved with very heavily, I know we're talking about clients and kind of consumers being the recipient or the audience of the brand, but something that we deal with a lot is employer branding. So how companies come across to their employees and to their recruits and job seekers, and how they are perceived in the marketplace as an employer. And I think that's something that's really come to the forefront and become more and more important over the last couple of years, with the Great Resignation, people changing jobs, lots of other factors at play with work-life balance, remote work versus in-person work. I mean, all these different things have kind of played into employers having to really make an additional investment in their employer brand. In many cases, I would argue that how you're building your brand with your internal personnel is more important than how you're coming across to the marketplace for consumers.
I love it. And I think, this is probably a tangent you and I are going to end up going on. And by the way, there is no such thing as a tangent on this show, because, it's all about how do we deliver wow? How do we impress our clients? And I haven't figured out how a company can deliver wow if their team hasn't bought in. If it's just a branding exercise to say we've got branding, I'm going to guess that doesn't shine as brightly as if the team owns it.
Absolutely.
And I'll just share an example. When I worked at a Fortune 500 company, and my first day on the job, I got a jacket with corporate branding on it, and it was a really little thing, but I got this mug that had the corporate logo on it, obviously, but on the back they'd engraved my name on it. And it was just like, at that moment I was like, I'm a fan of this company, even, I've since moved on from it, but I still send people there. And it's just a little thing, is giving people that customized, here's your mug, because otherwise it ends up in the cupboard and somebody else takes it, like, where'd my
Right.
mug go?
Well, the personalization, absolutely, that drastically increases the value and increases the likelihood. I mean, what many projects that we work on with clients come down to is everybody says, we want something that's going to be used. We don't want something that's going to be just, shoved in a drawer or shoved in a closet somewhere. And, so it's all about finding a product that's going to be relevant and useful. And one way to make sure that they're going to keep that coffee mug, when presented with the 12 coffee mugs that they have with various corporate logos on them or various graphics on them, of course, they're going to keep the one that has their name on it, right? So, yeah. And there's a lot to unpack there with what you just said. I mean, the fact that they had that ready for you on your first day, that's a phenomenal exercise of their employer branding. Also, there's been extensive research that shows that when you have an employee starting for your firm, that's an extremely important relationship building moment, because their anticipation and their excitement of what's to come is at an all-time high. Yep. You have to capture that. I think that it's the first 100 days that are well documented as being like the time that can really make or break an employee's long-term tenure with a company. But I would even say that the first day, the first experience that employee has when they first walk through the door, how are they being welcomed when they arrive on their first day? Are they being first directed to someone to fill out a bunch of paperwork just to kind of, get the I's dotted and the T's crossed before they can really get going? Or are they really being welcomed like they're part of the family at this point? And it sounds like you really were with that instance.
And I think that's just a little thing, because for the record, the company I worked at had great benefits. They had great things. But the thing I talk about is that and again, I'm not disparaging the mug, but in the grand scheme of things, it was the least important thing they did for me, but it was the thing that I remembered. And, I shared it with a lot of people. And, I'll carry it one step further. They also gave everybody company shirts with their name on the back.
Hmm.
So when you went to conferences, you got to wear these shirts, and you stood out because you were part of that community. And again, I don't pretend to know how much it costs to put somebody's name on the back of a shirt, but it's not a massive investment compared to the total cost of the shirt.
Sure. And
And
when you consider the cost to replace an employee, if
yes,
just every little bit of relationship building that you can invest in to maximize your retention, maximize your initial engagement with that employee, I mean, it definitely goes a long way. And I mean, you say it's a little thing, and it is. I don't have overly grandiose vision of what we do, but something I often say is that nobody's going to wear the jacket of the company logo if they don't like working there, right?
yep.
So the company has a lot of foundational work to do to build a culture in which people want to wear the branded swag once they receive it, right?
Yep.
You're going to be wasting your money on the branded swag if nobody wants to wear it when they receive it. So yes, promotional products are not they're not the solution to a poor culture,
Yep.
but they're definitely a way to leverage positive culture, to tap into what companies are already doing well, and to assist with that ever important relationship building. There are many other things that need to be done, but swag is something that a little can go a long way and should not be overlooked.
Well, and I would also say that swag is kind of the early warning sign. If your staff are using phrases like, "Do I have to wear this?" That's probably a sign that your culture isn't as great as you thought it was.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and that's, I like the difference between, do they want to wear it or do they have to wear it? And language is important, because if people say, "Oh, do I have to wear this?" I have friends who work at large organizations, and literally there's like drawers full of unused swag because nobody wants to wear the company. As you said, you're not going to wear the name of the organization on your chest if you don't like working at the company.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little tangent, and this is what I love about the podcast. I never know where we're going to go. Um, this is probably a really good question, but when somebody comes to you and says, "Matt, I need swag," what are the biggest misconceptions? What are they coming to you where you say, "Oh, I know that you think you need this, but really what you need is that"? What kind of conversations are you having, guiding people towards the right things? Like, what are the biggest challenges people make when they try to be their own swag experts?
Um, so I'm fourth generation in my family in this industry. My family was on the manufacturing side
Oh, wow.
of the industry. And so I worked for my dad at our family business for about a year before I started my company. And so I have kind of a unique window into the manufacturing side of things and understand the manufacturing processes and the imprinting processes a little bit better than if I had only been on this side of the business. So the side of the business that I'm on now, we've got thousands of suppliers and manufacturers across the world, of which my family was one. So we've got access to millions of different types of products. And with that come a wide variety of different decoration methods, different imprinting methods, different technologies, manufacturing capabilities and processes. And so I think that what we often see is just a misconception of how certain graphics can be used on certain products. To answer your question more directly, I think that's kind of what we do see from time to time, where someone has a logo that is very intricate, maybe small text, maybe a gradient of fading one color into another, and they're heart set on having something embroidered. Well, embroidery isn't necessarily the best decoration method for that. And you know, quite frankly, when I was first getting into this business, I would not have known that. You know, it's come with generations of sweat into it, and years for me in learning and education. So you know, it's just being able to kind of guide our clients in the appropriate direction a lot of the time, you know, with their graphics, or even designing a specific graphic for use on a particular item that they're looking to do. I'd say that would be one of the things. Another would just be, you know, our business model is very high touch. You know, there are different ways of kind of going about this type of business that I'm in. Our way of working with clients is very customized, working with clients to really flesh out a project from start to finish. So it's sometimes refreshing for our clients when they come to us. We have a consultation, we get an understanding of their organization and their brand, their target market, and then we're able to kind of curate ideas of products that are going to be a great fit for what they're looking to accomplish, without them having to you know, spend hours and hours doing the research through the millions of products that could be found. So so that's another thing that I think you know, sometimes clients are unsure of or unaware of until they come to us and they're like, oh, okay, that's your job. Got it. So,
I love it. And for what it's worth, I love the fourth generation. I mean, that's, you know, I am very, you know, first generation to this whole concept, but I've been through a lot of instances where it's like, what do you mean you can't put this on that? You know, it's pairing the right images with the right surfaces. And then, you know, sometimes, yes, we can do it, but the real question is, should we do it? You know, do you want, you know, if you're selling something that's maybe not public, you know, if somebody's got a disease, you're not going to put, you know, you're not going to wear the brand of the medication you take on your chest, you know, like there's differences, you know, so there's a bit of a strategy there. And the other thing, I work with a lot of graphic designers, and they think they know what they're doing, but it's very different, as you said, designing a graphic that's going to be worn on a t-shirt versus one that's going to be on a hat or a mug.
versus web, versus print ad, versus, you know, annual report. You know, I mean, you know, graphic designers, we work with graphic designers all the time as well, and you know, and they're doing oftentimes a wide range of different design work. So it's important for us to align ourselves with designers who have practical expertise also in the exact medium that that the design is going to be used on. So, you know, it's education sometimes, but I would say another thing with, and this happens frequently with a lot of our larger higher ed clients, you know, colleges that have multiple different departments that we're working with all at once, or, you know, large professional services firms, like, you know, accounting firms with 500 plus employees. You know, we might be working with the HR department and the marketing department and you know, recruiting and you know, a variety of different departments all at once, making sure that they're all aligned on brand standards.
Yeah.
That's very important. And it's the concept of, like, you know, brand police versus strategic partner. You know, are we a strategic partner for you to help you understand the you know, how best to leverage the brand assets that you've got, or are we just coming across as the brand police saying, nope, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that? But it's important that there's alignment across departments at organizations, that the logo is being used properly, that the messaging is all consistent, and you know, these all get to the root of, a lot of time, the market research and the marketing research that's already been done to establish those brand standards.
Yeah.
This is our intended audience. This is our ideal client. And this is the research that we've done of what's going to be best to reach them. So why would we squander that by doing something that's not in alignment? Right?
Well, and I can't help but think that, you know, there's also, you know, picking the right surface, you know, um, and it seems to go in phases. At one point, one year, every conference I went to, everybody was giving out the little portable cell phone chargers, and then everybody was giving out the water bottle. And it's like, how do you stand out? As you said, I'd go to conferences, and my wife would tell me before I left, do not come back with another water bottle. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, and that goes back to kind of what I said before. Everybody's always looking for something that's going to be useful and relevant and not going to be stashed away, right? And so, what I say is that we as a company are product agnostic. I don't care what products our clients do. It's not my job to push a product or advocate for a certain type of product or anything like that. I don't care what product my client does, as long as it's the most effective product for their needs. So that comes with that, initial discovery process. What are their needs, and what's the essence of their brand? So if they're, exhibiting at a trade show or a college fair or recruitment fair, who's the intended audience, and how are we best to reach them? What's the type of product that's going to be useful to that audience, and is going to be kept and retained for a long time, and that maybe is a little bit off the beaten path, so it's not the same thing that everybody else is doing. We don't want to, I think lately in higher education, socks is a major product that every college is doing their branded socks. So, which is great. I mean, there's a lot of applications for it, a lot of use for it. We've done socks to brand our company, and we've used them in some of our gifting for our higher education clients and for others. There's nothing wrong with it, but when it comes down to, okay, what can we do to really stand out? Maybe there's different avenues that we take, recognizing that socks are a little bit oversaturated at the current moment, right?
yeah.
In 5 years, who knows? Maybe socks will be all the rage again. So maybe socks will not be all the rage again, I should say, so that you can really stand out using them.
Yeah.
But,
Well, it's funny. You've got me thinking about, I was at a conference once, and it was probably at the time, it was very unique, very brilliant, but I'm sure it's been copied over and over. What they did was, in the conference hall, in the big main stage, they put a single sock on everybody's chair, and with a little note that said, if you want to find the pair to this sock, come visit our booth.
Love it.
And it was fascinating, because I sat down and I said, well, there's an empty chair next to me, I'll just take that sock. And I was like, wait a minute. And people were like, oh my God, you can't do that. And I'm like, but the seat is empty. So I went to the booth, and I gave them one sock and traded it for another. But it was very unique at the time.
Yeah, well, and those are those are the kinds of ideas that I love exploring also, because that's the first level is like the product, right? Choosing the right product that's really going to appeal to the target audience, make the impact that you're desiring, get the brand messaging across properly. The second level is, let's build a campaign around that item, or build an experience around that item. So for you, whether or not I hope you remember who the advertiser was, but
I do.
Okay, but there you go. Because you remember the experience that you had, that they cultivated. If it was just, if they just handed you a pair of socks, you may not have remembered the actual, the day and the event that took place. And it's funny, you made me think. I had a business advisor that we worked with, that I worked with a few years ago, who he used to be in pharmaceutical sales, I think it was, or medical device sales. And he needed like usually two different departments within an organization that he was calling on to be in alignment in order for him to get a meeting and make a sale. So what he would do, he came up with the idea of, he would send a walkie-talkie to each of those two individuals, those two department heads. And he would say, make sure you talk to each other, and then I'll come in the room, like that was the goal, the messaging behind that, you guys communicate, and then I'll come join you.
Well, and I love the strategy of this. And by the way, Matt, this is a very different conversation than I was expecting. So thank you. I've worked with a lot of, and I'm not going to disparage them, but, they're the guys that have the catalog, and they're like, okay, we bought 10,000 units of pens, push the pens, we need to get rid of the pens. they have a purpose. When you're looking for the cheapest, you know what you want, you just want the cheapest. But what I'm hearing with you is that if somebody's going for just the cheapest, first of all, they're missing out on the opportunities, but they're also missing out on the strategy.
Right. Well, the strategy is key. And sometimes the strategy is, let's keep it inexpensive. If you're, if you're exhibiting at a trade show, a philosophy that I often, and my team, that we often advocate for our clients, again, product agnostic, don't care what the product is, but what we advocate is that they have 2 tiers of items. If there's going to be 10,000 people at a conference or a trade show, you don't necessarily need to have, to give your best, most high value promotional item to all 10,000 people that come across. Maybe you want something that's eye-catching and enticing, but inexpensive out on your table or at your booth or whatever it may be. So that when someone just kind of walks by, you don't get a chance to have a conversation with them, but they grab some of your materials. At least they have something to remember you by. And then, that's a lower percentage play, but yeah, maybe they now have that and they'll give you a call after the fact. It's lower percentage, but it happens. So you want something to put in their hands, right? But then you keep something of higher value, maybe behind the table, under the table, behind the tablecloth. That if you have a meaningful conversation with someone who stops by for 10 or 15 minutes and you can qualify them as a legitimate prospect, then you give them something of higher value so that you've really made them feel like a VIP and you've shown them that additional appreciation and given them that additional value. So, so we work through those kinds of strategies with our clients that, it's okay if we have the strategic planning conversation and the most effective strategy works out to be something that's just inexpensive. We just need to get something inexpensively in the recipient's hands. That's okay, but it's worth going through that exercise to make sure that whatever you're doing is most effective. Because at the end of the day, it's an investment of dollars, no matter whether it's, lots of dollars on lots of items because it's inexpensive, or lots of dollars on few items because they're high value items. It's still an investment of dollars, so we've got to make it return as well as possible.
I love it. And I think that's a big factor, is having those 2 levels at least. You don't want to treat your VIP client the exact same, treat some stranger at a conference. I love it. Now, one of the questions I like to ask is, given that you are 4th generation, I'm going to raise the bar here, but what are some quick wins? Somebody watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, what are some quick wins they can implement so that they can up their swag game? What are your 3 insider secrets that you'd be willing to share with our audience?
Sure. I would say number 1 is, and this isn't even necessarily like a swag tip, it's more of just a general marketing tip, but it has to start here. Define your target market, define your ideal customer, ideal client, your ideal strategic partner, whoever you're intending to market to. Define who that is and be crystal clear on who they are, what their role is, what type of organization, industry, size of organization, what department, et cetera, as much as you could possibly, break that down to really be clear on who you're going after. So that would be number 1. Now we're in a place where we can start to talk product or talk marketing strategy, because we at least know who we're going after, right? So number 2, I would say, is define what that strategy is going to be from a messaging standpoint. What do you want that person to perceive your brand as? How do you want your brand to come across? What do you want them to be able to know about your organization after having marketed to them? So that's how you kind of define your brand promise and your selling, your unique selling position. And then we kind of get to where we can actually deploy product strategy. And so, those first 2 things can really be done without the assistance of a company like ours. But but these are conversations we have with clients all day long. So it can start with a vendor partner, or it can start kind of internally. But those are two things that I think are important to kind of clarify internally before actually making the investment. And then I would say for the third thing, again, it's not me selling and it's not me trying to push a product, but it's, just really like, I guess, defining what the ideal outcome is. Is it, we've used the trade show as an example. So if you're at a trade show, are you looking for leads from there, or are there going to be clients there that you just want to like reconnect with? Are you, trying to generate volume, just as many names as possible to add to your email list, or, what's the end goal here? If it's an employee appreciation or employee engagement type of program that you're employing, are there measurable goals that you're looking to achieve? Are you looking to have people, increase their employee satisfaction on a survey that you send out? Are you looking to have, X% of your staff attend some sort of workshop or some sort of event? Is it kind of the eye test? We work with clients a lot on holiday gifts. And one of the best ways that they can gauge success on a holiday gift program is, do they see the swag around the office by January or February or March? As a few years ago, we did a really effective project for a client where there was a jacket, and I was there meeting with the client's HR team for the following year's holiday gift to discuss that project. And I saw people walking around in the office wearing the previous year's pullover that we had done. And I looked around and I said, okay, this is a sign that last year's gift was effective. This was a real success, because I see people walking around wearing it a year later. So, just defining success criteria, I would say that'd be number 3.
I love that, and I'm half laughing, but my audience knows this. I say this till I'm blue in the face. Do not attempt anything unless you know who you're doing it for and what you want them to do as a result. And I think this is a really good reminder, because I knew somebody, I won't name names because this reflects really badly. They actually bought the cheapest, crappiest swag they could. And what he would do after the conference is he'd go around to the garbage bins and pull it out so that he could regift it next time. And he literally, his goal was he wanted to save his money. And I'm like, but why? What are you accomplishing? And the reality is, if somebody throws your stuff in the trash bin nearest to your booth, you've clearly missed the point of giving them something.
Yeah, I think that's obviously an extreme example, which is why you remembered it and why you gave it. And companies do that all the time, and with the best of intentions. Companies want to do something, but they, a lot of time, or some of the time, it can the forest can be lost for the trees. One example of that is just packaging. We talked earlier about when you got onboarded to that Fortune 500 company, the experience that they cultivated for you, and that relationship building moment when they gave you that swag on your first day. Well, sometimes packaging can go a long way in cultivating that experience. So for a minimal, add-on charge, we can take a promotional item and then package it in a way that someone's opening a beautiful box and it seems like this really, impressive gift, rather than just a thing that's handed to them. Then they have this, this gift opening experience. And a short-sighted purchaser might say, well, it's not worth the extra $2 or whatever the cost might be to include that packaging component. But in the grand scheme, what's that up leveling of the experience worth? It can really go a long way.
I love it. And I think that's, one of the things we talk about in our clientology space is, do your clients feel like your material you're giving them is a gift, or do they hold it out like this and, kind of hold it at arm's length? It goes a long way how you package it.
Sure. And I imagine what you're saying when you say material, you mean any kind of promotional materials or deliverables or anything that they're supplying. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I think that even if you're delivering a proposal, to a client or delivering a kind of a scope of work or something like that, it should be, rather than it just feeling transactional, there's always a way to enhance the experience and make it feel like, like just a more well presented moment.
Yeah, and given,
experience.
I've worked with a lot of accountants, and sorry to throw the industry under the bus, but they buy the cheapest bulk manila envelopes they can, and whether you pay them $5 or 5,000, you get the exact same envelope everybody else does. And it's usually black and white, printed on paper, stapled, and when you pay thousands of dollars, it would be nice to get a little binder or a little folder, or like you said, the proposals should have a nice look to them. And yet most people lose that opportunity. So let's go on a slight tangent, but what are you seeing in terms of customer retention through, I'm going to say, intentional gifting, but you use your words, but how are people not just attracting customers, but retaining them through commercial swag?
Yeah, that's a huge part of what we do. We have clients that they'll do a new client onboarding gift, which I think is a really excellent concept, and for all the reasons why we, that we just stated, of how important it is to make a new employee feel welcomed and feel like they're part of the culture and part of the family. A lot of organizations view their clients in the same way. So, how much more meaningful is it when, if you sign a contract with a service provider or with a company, professional services firm, and now you receive in the mail a swag box of some really cool stuff to kind of represent their brand, whether it's a nice water bottle or something, a nice blanket, to throw blanket for use at the home, or whatever it might be. Just some a way to really enhance that relationship. We do a lot of that. We also we run some recurring programs for clients for when they receive a referral to a new business opportunity. They'll send out a swag item as a token of appreciation to the referral source. And so we can operate that on kind of a what's the word, like an as needed basis, a fulfillment basis.
Yeah.
So we can warehouse all the merchandise for our clients, and then we have a web-based system where they can order their merchandise to be sent out on demand. That's another way that we're helping clients really go a long way with just enhancing that relationship building, and showing real appreciation to their loyal clients and to their referral sources.
I love it. And one of the things I would point out, I know you work with higher learning institutions. I see two opportunities at the very least. There's more than that, but when a new student comes in and they're about to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, why not have the dorm survival kit? Give them a welcoming gift, and then on the flip side, when somebody graduates, I used to fascinate me. You spend tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, on a degree, and then when you get your actual certificate, your diploma, it comes in this cheap frame that they could have gotten down the street at a retail store for $2.
Yeah, maybe you get a Velcro wallet with it or something like that.
Yeah, it's like, why not put a little, and again, I'm recognizing when somebody graduates from a university, a lot of universities think, okay, we're done with them, but there's that alumni association that's going to reach out next year and say, we'd like you to keep donating, we'd like more of your money. Why not have an alumni package?
Yeah, and we do a lot of all of the above that you just mentioned. Those new student welcome. I mean, it really, where we start with our university clients is at the very beginning of that student journey. So when the student is a prospective student, they may attend college fairs, they may be, coming to campus for a visit and an info session and a campus tour. So all of that kind of like pre-application component of the relationship, that's all an opportunity to begin marketing and making that student feel like a part of the campus community and build that relationship. And then from the moment that the student applies, then when they're accepted, that's a really key moment. We do a lot with admitted students events. These are events where students may be admitted to multiple schools and they're still deciding which school they're actually going to attend. So they go back to each of the schools they've been admitted to for a visit, and it's a big, admitted students event that happens there, and that's a huge opportunity for these universities to really, sell is the kind of, I don't know, it's the blunt term, I guess, but that's really the opportunity to to close the deal with a student, I suppose, and that's, so it's important to do that. And then all through the then there's summer melt, which is the attrition of students who enroll but then they don't actually attend come fall for whatever reason. So we work with higher education clients to remain in contact with their incoming students all throughout the summer before they attend their freshman year, and then all through their experience on campus and all the way through alumni. So it's colleges and universities are in a position where from the very first touch point with a prospective student, they already have to be thinking about building. They want to view that high school sophomore or high school junior as a potential lifelong brand ambassador for the university as a successful alumnus into adulthood. Yep. So they have to begin that journey right at that point.
I love it. And I think that's, too many people are thinking, okay, how do I get the next name on my next list? But when it comes to clientology, and I think you and I are going to have more conversations, just as a fair warning. We're trying to build raving fans. It's cheaper. They say, depending on the statistic, but it's 6 to 7 times cheaper to get an existing customer to buy from you again than it is to get a brand new customer in the door. And clientology, we're all about, straightest, shortest point between dollars and effort. And I think building those relationships. Now, have you helped anybody get to the iconic level where their clients are lining up to tattoo themselves? You have a new goal after
it's
today,
funny,
right?
I mean, you mentioned, just we're talking about colleges, universities. I mean, when you asked earlier, like, what other types of brands, you mentioned Harley Davidson and Apple, who else would have a brand tattooed on them? I would say I was trying to think of like other brands that people might do that with. And the only thing I could think of is sports teams, professional sports teams, and college sports teams, or colleges that they attended. So, so I can't say that we've helped any of our clients get to the point where someone would brand their logo on it, but I would be willing to bet that there's at least one person out there with a tattoo of a college that is a client of ours. So
I heart college name here.
Correlation, not causation.
I love it. Now, Matt, my last question is there anything I should have asked you about the secret world of swag? And by the way, I'm just going to point out for anybody listening, there's more to it than I expected. But is there anything I should have asked you that you'd like to bring up as a parting thought for my audience?
No, I mean, I think that I approached this, I think, the same way that you did. We didn't know where it was going to go, and tangents, no such thing as a tangent, or that's definitely no such thing as a bad tangent. So I don't know. I think we had a good conversation. I enjoyed it.
Excellent.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you. And the last question I have is, what's the best way? Somebody's listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I got to up my game. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you or learn more about Double Take?
Sure. So, and actually this may be partly an answer to the last question, if there's anything we should have covered, but something that I offer that I'm offering any of your listeners as a kind of a free value add to take away is we have an assessment that we've created called the Irresistible Brand Barometer. And if you go to doubletakebrandbarometer.com, there's a 5-minute assessment that you could take with a series of questions to assess how your organization does in the 4 key areas of client appreciation, referral generation, employee engagement and retention, and recruiting and onboarding. And you'll get an assessment of kind of where your organization stands in those 4 areas, and a customized report showing ways that you can leverage existing strengths and capitalize on things you do well, and also room to grow. So that's something that I can share out, which is doubletakebrandbarometer.com. And then our main website is doubletakepromotionalmarketing.com.
I love it. And by the way, for the accountants out there, I'm going to stress that I'm seeing the opportunity to invest in your brand, as opposed to this is a cost that you want to, how cheaply can I do this? So I'll put the 2 links in the show notes. Matt, I really want to thank you for your time today. It was very enlightening, and I can't wait for other conversations with you.
Likewise, I really enjoyed it, Jeff. Thank you for having me on.